Hey guys, so whether out of necessity or voluntarily, side hustles are becoming more and more common as people look for ways to bring in more money. And a lot of people doing side hustles have a full-time job at the same time. And then the question can often come up, how do you manage the two effectively? So that's what I'm going to look through in this video as someone who has a full-time job and side hustles here on YouTube. So let's get right into the video. Now, my overall opinion of side hustles is that they are a great thing and they come with multiple benefits. It comes with the idea that you can bring in more money, you're diversifying your streams of income. So you're not fully dependent on one source of income. So if something were to happen to your full-time job, then, you've got your side hustle to fall back on, even if it just gives you a little bit of a safety net until you get back on your feet. That would, of course, be the worst case scenario. And then in the best case scenario, it allows you to build wealth quicker if you want to bring in more money and then invest that or save that, or you're looking to buy a house or maybe invest in something bigger, then that's a great way to get the funds to be able to do it as well through a side hustle. And then from a non-financial side, there's a lot of skills and competencies that you can learn from doing a side hustle, whether it's a particular trade or craft that you're doing in a side hustle, whether it's the overall managing or running a business, whether it's customer service or speaking in public, for example. There's a load of different skills that, depending on whatever your side hustle is, you can acquire and that can benefit you in your life, both personal and professional. That said though, running a side hustle is not always easy, and particularly when done alongside a full-time job, there needs to be some boundaries, some kind of structure in place to ensure that the two can coexist without being adversely impacted by one another. So now I'm going to share with you my tips that I've learned over the past 2 years of being on YouTube and also working at the same time to ensure that I can, do the best at my full-time job. That is what puts food on the table and pays the bills essentially, but also how I've managed to grow my YouTube channel to where I am. So let's get right into them. So the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, why do you want a side hustle? Why do you need a side hustle? Is it because you want to, get out of debt quicker? Is it because you want to be able to invest more money? Is it that you're actually passionate about something else and you one day plan to leave your full-time job? These are all possible reasons that you could set up a side hustle and get that up and running. And I've given you some potential reasons here. Of course, you may have your own, but essentially having a reason and a why as to why you're doing your side hustle is really important, because if you're going to be spending, 10 to 20 hours a week, however long, your side hustle needs, then there's got to be a good conviction as to why you're doing it. If you're just doing it, because you want the money, but you've got no goal, you've got no objective behind it, then you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna burn out and you're gonna ask yourself, why am I doing this? Like, why am I killing myself to try and build this? Because, what am I gonna do with it? Always have the end goal in mind, and that will help you stay focused and it will help you remember why you're doing a side hustle. Second thing I want to talk about is that when you're picking a side hustle, think carefully about what you want to do. I will say that, if it's something you're interested in or it's a hobby that you can monetize, then it will be much easier for you to be able to go through it than if it's just, some kind of job that you're not really passionate about, because it will give you a lot more satisfaction and fulfillment than something that you're perhaps not so passionate about, that you feel like you're doing out of obligation just to get a bit more money. Now, once you've come up with the reason why you're going to side hustle and you've perhaps got a side hustle, organization is key. You got to be realistic as to how much time you can legitimately commit to your side hustle per week and give your all to be able to grow that. And you need to manage your own expectations of what you can get out of your side hustle based on your normal work schedule. Because it's no good, for example, wanting to become an overnight influencer when, that one, normally doesn't happen, and two, requires an immense amount of time, dedication, effort to learn your craft and to grow and gain popularity on social media, for example. So you need to be realistic with your expectations, know how much time you can commit, and understand how much time it might take you to get to where you want to be with your side hustle. I gave a bit of a, extreme example there. Not everyone wants to side hustle as a social media influencer. Some people might just be, delivering food in their spare time, or some people might be doing private tutoring in their spare time. No, these two side hustles, you can get set up and running and get to where you need to be pretty quickly. But again, like, that organization is key, because even with these side hustles where you can get set up and get to where you want to be quickly, you need to make sure that they're not impacting your main job and that you can do the two at the same time without, there being negative impacts from one on the other. And so that leads nicely onto the next point, which is that remember that you should prioritize your main job at all times. This can perhaps be frustrating, particularly if you're not particularly passionate about your main job or you envision yourself doing your side hustle long term. But trust me, generally speaking, your main job comes with a greater sense of security, and it's probably in most cases what puts food on the table and money in the bank to pay the bills. So unless your side hustle is at a stage where it's comparable or it's about to overtake your main job, then your main job should always take priority over the side hustle, because the side hustle is a thing on the side. It's not the main focus of your efforts, your time, and you have got a responsibility to your employer as well to fulfill your job responsibilities and employment contract. So in that instance, it might be a time to, park your side hustle, just press pause for the little bit of time that you need to get through that period at work, and then, you can go back to it and give it the time and energy that you can devote to it once all of the busy stuff is out the way at your job. An analogy that I particularly liked by another YouTuber called Nisha was, think of it that you're spinning multiple plates on your fingers. There'll come a point where if you have a lot of plates going on at the same time, you won't be able to spin them all at once. And it might be, as she says, you put one plate down for a bit and you focus on spinning that main plate, which, might be the job in this case, until, that's under control, and then you can pick up the other plate and then start spinning again. Next consideration is whether to tell your employer about your side hustle, because it may be the case that you're in an industry that has non-compete clauses, that maybe you're living and working abroad and a side hustle wouldn't come within the concept of your visa, for example, so you couldn't do it. Or maybe, you're going to become a social media star, or you're going to be particularly visible and your employer can find you online. Or it might be, that there's no real need because, you don't have these complications with your job contract, or what you're doing is completely unrelated, like it might be property investing, or it might be, you do arts and crafts stuff and you sell products on Etsy. Then I don't think in most cases that probably wouldn't be a problem. Now, you know your employer better than I do, of course, so the judgment call is really up to you. What I will say is that I personally told my employer about, my YouTube channel, and I was, surprised at the positive reaction that I got. I would even go as far to say, they're supportive in what I do, which is really cool and really nice. What we have done at the same time is kind of establish some guidelines, if you like, some, if there's things that I shouldn't talk about on the channel, that I did agree with my employer in order to be able to do this. And so as well, it's worth noting that if you do decide to tell your employer, whatever the reaction, just know that you are going to be perhaps under a bit more of a microscope than other colleagues. So that's something to keep in mind when you make your decision as well. And the last thing I want to talk about as well is not overworking yourself. This is super important, and it's really key that you make sure that you do look after yourself whilst working and side hustling at the same time. As I said, side hustles aren't easy. They do require additional energy, additional time, additional effort, particularly at the start when you're trying to get things going. But you do need to be mindful as well that, you have a main job. You also have perhaps, you've got a personal life. You need to enjoy time. You need to relax. You need to see family and friends and not just immerse yourself fully in work, because it can be very detrimental to your, physical and emotional well-being. And I think this last point I'm making now kind of nicely draws everything together. And it's important that, in order to meet this goal, that you have a reason why you're doing your side hustle, that you do have some kind of organization and structure in place as to how you're going to operate it, that you have everything under control from a main job and side hustle perspective. Because as much as there are all these benefits that come with side hustles, they don't add up to much. They won't give you much if at the end of the day you're feeling down and you're feeling burnt out because you've put too much into it and you can't keep up anymore. So really do prioritize yourself, your well-being, and look after yourself when side hustling. So guys, these are my tips. I hope you found them useful and helpful. Leave a comment and let me know, are you side hustling at the same time as working, and how do you manage the two? Till next time, I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.